Hey folks, Pat here from DNS, and this Madison area fishing report is current as of May 31st. Well, we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. It's been kind of a busy morning here at the shop, so let's see if we can sneak this in here. Tomorrow, June 1st, Kids Fishing Day down at the Warner Park Rainbow Shelter on the Warner Park Lagoon. AR Fishing Club, awesome group, can't sing their praises enough. They will be giving away rod and reel combos to the first 300 kids that come down there. They get bait that I'm happy to donate to this great event from the shop here. They got members on hand. They're going to be showing people what's up. And at the end of the little thing, it goes from 9 to noon down there tomorrow. At the end of it, they got a hot dog and chips and soft drink provided. So, you know, what's really not to like about an event like this? We did have members from the club here at the shop last night setting up rods. So they put together the 300 rod and reel combos, got them all rigged up and ready to go. And yeah, again, this is just an awesome event. If you've got a young person you want to get into fishing, it's really a great time. And yeah, just imagine the number of kids that they've gotten into fishing over the years through this event. So good on the Yahar Fishing Club. Please support them where you can. The nice thing about this too, you know, kids have parents that bring them down here, and you know, normally parents can't fish with kids if you don't have a license, but this coincides with the DNR's free fishing weekend, which is also this weekend, June 1st and 2nd. You can fish this weekend without a license. I think you can also get into state parks and like state trails for free too. You don't need a pass there. But anyway, yeah, so if you got a friend that you know is always saying, oh, I don't have a license, that's their excuse to not get out fishing. Now they don't have an excuse, so you can drag them out there. But yeah, great opportunities to get out fishing. I did just want to plug a friend of mine starting in a new business here called Round River Adventures. They do trout guiding and guiding on the Wisconsin River, but they also do this glamping. So if you're not familiar with glamping, it's a word that means kind of glamorous camping. And you can see here they got these awesome, like almost like a yurt style tent. And they put you out on the river. They take everything out there. Got if you're not familiar with the Wisconsin River, or you're not don't have a ton of camping gear but want to experience a really great time camping on the Wisconsin River, is awesome. So yeah, anyway, give these guys a look. Round River Adventures. They do all kinds of different stuff, but this glamping thing looks pretty cool. So yeah, you can camp in comfort out there. Yeah, I guess as far as other shop news, the only poster we got on the door is for the Yahar Fishing Kids Fishing Day, so we talked about that already. I guess as far as the report goes, we can get into that. With all the rain we've been getting the last week, couple weeks, it was nice to have a chance to dry out this last week. It was windy to start the week, but the last few days have been very pleasant, and it looks like a nice weekend and more of the same into next week. The Mendota buoy is running at 63 degrees right now. They don't have the cord that gives you the temps all the way down, but that's a pretty good surface temp guide, and then you can just pretty much add a degree or two as you head down the chain, if you want to get an estimate of what other water temps are down there. But generally around the chain, things are changing every day this time of year, but most fish are still up shallow. Problem is the weeds are also up, making access to those fish a little bit difficult in spots. Also, the slimy filamentous algae, that green stuff you get on your hooks, has been causing some headaches in spots. But that being said, bluegills are spawning on all the lakes. I reported last week that things are winding down here on Wabisa and Kegonsa, but I got some reports this last week of fish being caught with females that still had eggs in. So, it just goes to show that the spawn doesn't really happen all at once. It can be a slow burn sometimes. You can find gills on beds anywhere across the chain from 2 to 15 feet of water, but generally speaking, your bigger fish like to spawn in a little deeper water. A small ice fishing jig tipped with a piece of redworm, spike, or waxworm is really all you need for those fish. Of course, fishing with a fly rod is a great option, and I'll get into that when we talk about our Happy Fly Day feature at the end of the report here. Crappies are generally being found out deeper now in that 10 to 15 feet of water on weed edges, but I've heard about some suspended fish out over deeper water, but at those same 10 to 15 foot depths. Crappie minnow or a minnow-shaped plastic on a small jig head is a pretty safe bet for those fish. Bass are done spawning now, and they have their post-spawn feed bag on. Lots of things work for them this time of year, but with the weeds coming up, a weedless rig plastic or like a swim jig are all good options, but topwater action has also been heating up too. Catfish action remains good here on the north side with cut bait still working well for those fish, but the crawler bite is definitely getting better every day. And have you even heard about some people getting some fish on stink bait already? Walleye are moving deeper as the water temps increase, and I've heard about some fish coming out of water as deep as 25 feet. Jerk and swim baits work well at night when they're up shallow, and a little more subtle presentation like a leech or a large fathead on a jig or under a bobber is a good idea during the day, especially when it's sunny. Although folks do get plenty of fish trolling crankbaits still, and I've heard about some folks running crawler harnesses already too and getting some fish. Folks are picking up some muskies here and there, but it's not hot and heavy yet. But the pike are plentiful, and we'll grab just about anything I mentioned above. But it's hard to beat a large shiner or a small sucker under a bobber. Rivers and streams are running high right now, but clearing up and coming down, and I'll get into that as well as we go through the report. A little more in-depth coverage here up on Cherokee. Still, it's a weedy mess. Going to be that way all summer. Some shore fishing up here at Cherokee Park is difficult, but topwater is always an option. Of course, if you have a small watercraft, you can launch here at the School Road launch and get out into the channel and have a little more weed-free experience down to the 113 bridge. Like I said, catfish are kind of the star of the show down there, but they have been getting quite a few white bass that have moving through. And also a nice mixed bag over there and some largemouth bass, some nice largemouth coming out of there. But on the catfish front, like I said, cut bait and crawlers has been working well, and actually leeches a little bit too. A couple folks run leeches under a bobber. So anyway, they're in there. They're going to be there another week or two, and it's always a great time. Some huge catfish down there. As far as Lake Mendota goes, a lot going on. I feel like we're ahead of schedule as far as spawning activity goes. Catfish and bluegill are about the only fish left to spawn, and that's happening right now. Most of the fish are hanging out pretty shallow around the lake. Bluegills are in beds in most shallow areas. Crappies are done spawning and have moved out to 10 to 15 feet of water, like I said, and near weed edges. Smallmouth are generally done spawning, but I saw on Lake Link, Rick Kruger, who spoke here at the shop, he posted this cool thing. This picture here's a bunch of smallmouth fry, and they're hanging out near the bed. And then he found the adult that's kind of guarding the bed there, swimming around. So they're not on beds, but they're kind of hanging out and keeping an eye on their young. But they're definitely moving off, and a lot of smallmouth are being found out on rocky breaks and stuff like that. So that's where you can look for those fish. Otherwise, largemouth are still up shallow, and it'll pretty much remain in those areas all summer, really. Like I mentioned in the intro, water temps are, as they climb, walleye are moving out deeper, especially on sunny days, being found out in 20-ish feet of water. I haven't heard anything about walleyes out on mid-lake humps, but like Dunn's Bar, Second Point, areas like that, Beerley Bars, should be holding walleyes soon, or they're moving out there. So, but otherwise, walleye fishing at night's great around the University shoreline, Tenney Park, of course, Warner Breakwall. Offers some great fishing with crankbait or jerk baits and paddle tails, stuff like that. Tenney Park Breakwall, speaking of, has been producing a nice mixed bag of fish, and there are some fish spawning in this area too, the bluegills and stuff. A lot of good action coming out of the river still. Folks are still catching walleyes for some reason. I thought they'd have been moved out by now, but they are getting also a good white bass bite in there, some bluegill. You see muskies and even a sturgeon in there every now and then. So a lot of good action up and down the river as it dumps into Lake Monona. That's a great spot over there where the current comes in. A lot of fish like to congregate in that area. Otherwise, the same deal over here. A lot of bluegills up spawning on beds right now. So all around the lake, north end of the lake here near Old Brick's good. The bays, Weechawak and Turville Bay down here are great. Monona Bay, triangles, hard to beat that. So any of your shallow areas, you're going to find fish, and you can find them as shallow as 2 feet, and you can find them out as deep as 15 feet. Over to the Monona Terrace Wall, they are catching crappies out there, so they have kind of moved in out there, and some bluegills, and I do hear about some walleyes in the evening. Lake Wingra has, of course, a good panfish bite going on over there. Good largemouth bite in there, too, although the weeds are starting to get a little thick. But the muskie bite over there is also good. A lot of smaller fish, but I am hearing about some good action on Lake Wingra for muskies. As far as moving down the chain, over here to Lattice Park and the Upper Mud Lake area, a lot of good panfish in there, especially in the kind of the channel out here. They're catching some big crappies have kind of moved out there. Gills are still shallow for the most part. The dredge hole over here up Upper Mud is holding a ton of panfish as always, but the shallows around here, good largemouth bass in there, and they're got their post-spawn feed bag on, so that's a great spot to look for bass. The area here up at the railroad trestle, there's good current come through there. So if you're shorebound, that's a great spot. Nice mixed bag of fish in there. You could catch a muskie, you could catch tons of bluegills. So you would never really know. Otherwise, on the Lake Wabisa itself, a lot of gills up shallow spawning right now too on beds. So Lake Farm, this whole up by the Green Lantern over here, this whole north shoreline, South Bay down here is a great spot to check out. Otherwise, as far as other species go, I have heard about a few walleyes from folks trolling out in front of Babcock. some good structure out there. And crappies being found in that 10 to 15 feet of water, weed edges and breaks and stuff like that, in particular between Babcock and the Bible Camp area. Some fish coming out of the dam below Babcock. Down on Kegonza, I haven't heard a ton coming out of there. I know the Bass Club had their bass event down there, and I think some people did well down there. Otherwise, the Fish Camp County Park area up here, this vast shallow flats up here, is should definitely be holding fish. Otherwise, usually down here along the south shoreline, also you can find spawning fish down there. I think that pretty much does it for the chain. Down on the Rock River, river's high right now, so fishing in the river itself is tough. They are getting fish in Lake Koshkonong, mostly trolling. Sounds like 5 feet of water or less for a lot of those fish. But yeah, action in the Rock River itself, up at the Jefferson Dam. I've been hearing about some white bass up there and some catfish moving through, so there's that going on. Beaver Dam Lake up here still has a great eater catfish bite going on, and I hear they're actively spawning right now, so if you can find some rocks along the shoreline, you'll likely find catfish. And I imagine bluegills are up shallow on beds over there as well. Devil's Lake has been producing some nice trout. I've had a few folks coming through catching trout from shore, so they're still up pretty shallow. As that water warms, they will start to move out deeper, and then they'll kind of suspend, maybe 10, 15 feet down over that 30 feet of water, or on the bottom, depending on how warm the water is. Fishing on the Wisconsin River is very difficult. It's flowing at 28,000 CFS right now. I'd say usual average for about this time of the year is 11,000 CFS. So, yeah, it's at least double what it normally should be for this time of year. So if you're going to be on the river, be careful of floating debris and stuff like that. And the dams, the water's pushing through there good. Up on the flowages, though, you're going to run into a little more calmer conditions. I've been hearing about some good walleye action on Lake Wisconsin, fishing breaks, maybe not 10 to 15 feet of water, but breaks near deeper, shallow water. Also hearing about some good panfish action in some of the bays around here in Moon Valley, over by the grade, good bluegills up spawning, and crappies in post-spawn mode. But yeah, I'm not going to really recommend fishing in the river because it's just raging right now. But, maybe the Dells Dam might be fishable. Not really sure about that. But Petenwell and Castle Rock flowages, same deal over there. Your shallow bays are going to have panfish in there spawning or in post-spawn mode. And then, walleyes near breaks. Over to the Mississippi River, same deal. Water's pretty high coming through there. But the nice thing about the high water is it does push fish, and this goes for the Wisconsin River too, pushes fish into some of your sloughs and kind of backwaters, so it can make fishing over there fun and actually pretty cool. You get some of that flooded timber fishing, can be a lot of fun over there too. Over to Milwaukee, we've got again the rivers are high and basically unfishable, but the fish on the Big Lake has been fishing on the Big Lake's been great. Cohos are moving up the East Coast over here. I can't speak specifically, but I think I heard that they're starting to wind down at Kenosha and Racine, still getting them out in front of Milwaukee, Port Washington, and up to Sheboygan. And so the cohos will continue to move up the East Coast here. But the good news is that the kings are starting to show up. So king salmon, obviously the biggest salmon that swims out there, and a lot of fun to catch. So if you're into that, you can even get them from shore sometimes if the conditions are right. I guess I haven't heard much out of Green Bay or Oshkosh or anything up there. So, yeah, I guess that pretty much does it for the warm water report. Of course, trout fishing around the area is fantastic this time of year before the weeds and bugs get too bad. But the rivers and creeks around the area were kind of blown out from the rain we got all this last week. But I did talk to a couple guys that have been out, and the water is coming down and starting to clear up. Should be in good shape by this weekend, I would think. On the spinning gear side of things, Rapala countdowns, crappie-sized tube jigs, small spinners, and spoons are all real safe bets this time of year. If you want to toss meat, drifting a redworm under a bobber is really tough to beat. Probably the most effective way to catch trout that there is. Otherwise, for fly anglers, in this dirtier water, drifting woolly buggers and larger dark-colored nymphs through the same pools and tail outs and runs will likely produce fish. On the dry fly side of things, we've got a lot of caddis and blue-winged olives still coming off. So make sure you have both the nymph versions and the dry fly versions in your box in case a hatch comes off for those fish. And of course, I've been hearing about sulfurs. It's June, so sulfurs are coming up. We will talk about sulfurs in our next Happy Fly Day feature. But today I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about bluegills on the fly. These pics were sent to me by my buddy Jeff, who's an awesome angler. and but has been just waiting around town. He doesn't have a boat or anything, and just pounding these giant bluegills. So you can see it looks like he's using a little beadhead leech here. But yeah, these fish are very accessible. Trophy fish. Jeff releases all of his fish, which is great for the population because again, some of these fish are 10 years old and do a great job protecting their young. And yeah, it's important to keep them in the system. But the flies that you work this time of year, Jeff, like I said, was using like a little beadhead woolly bugger leech or something like that. Is super fantastic, and you can catch bass and anything on these. But also, these girdle bugs, the classic bluegill fly this time of year. I got them in a bunch of different colors. Also, like a dark colored nymph, like a stone fly here, is very effective. These what do you call them? Oh well, pink squirrels is a great option, and then these Uncle Kurt's flies that we sell for ice fishing, but are also super effective in the spring and summer are great. And then Bimbo Skunk, that's the name I was trying to think of. Bimbo Skunk. I've got a couple of these. Hopefully, we can get some of these more of these tied up and sold here at the shop because that's also a very effective bluegill fly. So anyway, yeah, just wanted to switch gears there a little bit and mention bluegill flies because it really is a great fun and great way to catch fish this time of year. That pretty much does it for the report. So feel free to call the shop, 241-4225, if you have any questions or want me to expand on anything. Also, feel free to post your comments and catches below. We'd love to see and hear what's going on out there. And yeah, do get out and enjoy the weather. The free fishing weekend this weekend, kids fishing day. A lot of great opportunities to get out and do stuff. So get out there and enjoy it. I do appreciate you tuning in. I wish you luck out there. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks so much.